Hi, everyone. This is Tulio Sergus. I'm here with Jose Leal. We are Radical World, the podcast. This is the Pioneer series, the Radical Pioneer series. This is season 1, episode 4. Past few episodes, we've been talking about the radical lens, viewing the world through the fiat lens, and the difference between the fiat lens and what it means to be radical. In the fiat lens, we've learned a great deal about the typical structures that you'll find at work, command and control structures, which are also very pervasive in everything else that we do in life. And we also discovered that most of all the things that are happening around us have been created as a manifestation of these lenses that have been artificially sort of put on our in front of us, and they've been in front of us for so long that it's become the norm, even though there's nothing normal about it. Today we're going to talk about some of the manifestations of the fiat lens, especially when it comes to when we get outraged about the things that are not going right, either at work or in this world. And how we go about it perhaps could be an indication that we still have the lenses on or we've taken them off, right? We're either the victims with the lenses on or we've taken them off and realized I have to make some changes in how I perceive things and how I do things. So, Jose, let's talk about this a little bit.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on this? What have been some of the impacts in sort of our personal lives? We talked about the impact at work and society, but personally, what are some of the impacts that the fiat lenses have had on all of us?
Well, because we don't realize that we have got the lens going on, the fiat lens is on us. We've learned to blame each other and blame ourselves, right? So if things aren't going right for me, then I don't perceive that things aren't well around me, and I blame myself for the problem, right? The way we structure work, the way we structure relationships between people, the way we structure our society is done with this fiat lens. So all of our systems are fiat systems, or at least most of them, if not all of them. And so as individuals, what people are going through, in many cases, it is this disconnect between what they see and reality through the fiat lens that causes them to lead to depression, right? To anxiety, to coping mechanisms like alcohol and drugs, because we are seeing the world as this place where we have full agency, if you will, and the reality we don't have full agency. We're controlled by the systems around us.
It's an interesting observation, and this might come to a shock to a lot of people who would say, no, it's got nothing to do. I have nothing to do with that. It's those guys. They're the problem. I'm just trying to raise a voice to make a change. But oddly enough, what happens with the fiat lenses is that we don't even see how we've been participating in something, not necessarily because we wanted to, but because we didn't know any other way. Right. So it's like the devil you know is the devil you keep sort of thing. So as a result, we've manifested a reality that inevitably doesn't feel good. The ultimate outcome is this sucks. Yeah, I've been buying into this for so long. It's not working out the way I wanted it to. So it must be that I did something wrong. So we blame ourselves, even though we were perhaps the real victim of a system that's so pervasive that you don't even know that you're participating in it.
Right.
And so let's talk about some examples of that. Examples of perhaps where someone might be going through a very distressful situation, and then the way the system solves it is to teach them to take responsibility and blame themselves, where perhaps it was just they were part of the system that didn't realize they were part of the system.
Right.
And that's a fine line, right? Because there are sometimes some things you do need to take responsibility for, but where do you know what to take responsibility for? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, Jiddu Krishnamurti, I don't know if you know Krishnamurti, Tulio, but I studied his work for many years, and he worked very closely with a physicist by the name of David Bohm. And they had a number of dialogues in the 80s. And um, he would say something like, I'm paraphrasing, but it's no judge of health being adapted to an unhealthy system.
Mm.
In other words, we should be unhealthy in a system that causes us to be unhealthy, right? And so if we're depressed because we work, as an example, we work in an environment where we're not relating to the people we're working with. We don't see the outcome of our work. There is no impact that we see. There is no meaning in our work because the work we're doing is meaningless to us. Then our needs are not being met. If our needs are not being met, that's when we feel disconnected. That's when we feel disengaged. And so the system says we've got disengaged employees. There's a problem. It's their problem. They're disengaged, right? And in reality, what's happened is we work in a system that doesn't allow us to engage because none of those needs are being met, right? And so for us, we think the system, because of the fiat lenses, the system is the way it is. So the fault is mine. So not only are we disengaged, not only are we not happy with the work that we're doing, but then we blame ourselves because we think that's everybody else is doing it, so that's normal.
I want to highlight a specific example, if I could. Imagine we talked about food, right? Making healthy choices. There are some better choices you can make with food, like organic foods or raw foods that are going to be better for you than packaged goods and etc.
Processed stuff, yeah.
But here's the thing, though: those better foods are costly. They cost a lot more money. So if I am raised and born and grown into an environment where I don't have as much money, I don't have the option to go and get those foods. So I'm kind of stuck with what I have. So you can't say, hey, it's, when the person's dealing with cholesterol, heart problems, and all these other issues, you can't say to them, well, it's the choices you made on the food you ate, because they didn't have the choice to go make the better food choice because it's too expensive. It's not affordable.
Or not available.
Oh, not available. So
because there's a lot of
system.
places in the United States today where you've got fresh fruit deserts. Literally, the food is not available in your neighborhood. No one is selling fresh food.
Right.
Only packaged stuff.
So to blame yourself for the choices you made because you didn't really have a choice is unfair. So I guess the point I'm trying to make is that a lot of times the solution presented is still within the fiat lens, the manifested reality of the fiat lens, which causes you to either feel guilty because you don't have the ability to do that, or makes you feel like a loser because you don't have the ability to do that. It doesn't necessarily break away from the environment. We're solving the problem within the problem.
Right.
So how do we break away from that?
Well, before we talk
Besides the
about
consciousness that we talked about, you
right.
know.
But before we talk about breaking away, because I think there's those details, what you're describing, like personal, intricate details of what's happening at work, at home, with food, and so forth, right? But there's also a societal scale to all of this, because then we start becoming, the work of polarization, of they are the ones to blame, right? Because I think that the way I think is the way the world should be, and they think the way they think is the way the world should be. And so we end up with our fiat lenses using force to fight each other.
Yeah.
There isn't a recognition that when we both have these fiat lenses on, what we see as enemy, right? We see each other as enemies from the start. So what do we have? We have political systems where they are fighting tooth and nail. It doesn't matter that they actually serve us better. What matters is that they win.
That's such a key point of the fiat system. It's designed for hierarchy.
Well,
So
hierarchy and
you're
competition.
competing within that hierarchy. And even with my view is better than your view, it's a form of hierarchy.
Right.
I'm trying to elevate the way I do things above the way you do things, but it's within the same context of the same system. And even in the political landscape, you could have a well-intentioned politician who goes into office. It doesn't matter which side they're on.
Right.
And the opposite side is going to work every day to discredit them.
Right. And it doesn't matter whether they're doing good or not.
It
right?
doesn't matter. This system's going to work against it. So, and then it's easy for everybody to just say it's that candidate or it's that, but it's the system that's.
But we do this. But we in many organizations we do the same thing. Why is that person the VP? We need to knock him down. We don't want him to succeed, right? For one reason or another, be it political or there's always a reason why one department starts fighting with other department. One team lead is fighting with another team lead. It's the same thing. It's this view that the world is about competition. It's this view that it's about control, and that what we need to do is put more controls in place. Of course, my view of what the controls are, right? That's what we need to do. That's how we solve it. So what we're actually doing is getting lost further and further from the reality of what needs to be done. It isn't about more control, right? That's what the radical lens is about. So how do we, to your question of a minute ago, how do we move away from this situation? We cannot move away from this situation until we realize that the lenses that we've got, that these fiat lenses, our view of the world, is not reality. It's a view that society has put on us. Our parents, our teachers.
That's the real artificial intelligence, by the way. Well, the artificial view of the world that we bought into. It is an artificial view.
It is. Well, it's we know about nature versus nurture, right? And we know what nature does. Nature, our genes, and the way that we develop biologically alters how we behave, right? We know that. But what we've lost sight of is that the nurture part has been built, this lens has been built from a wrong view of humanity. We judge humanity, we judge ourselves. We deem that we need to be controlled because we judge. So those people aren't good enough. They're not smart enough. They're not looking out for my needs. They're not. And so therefore, the way we do it is control. Almost every single system of governance that we have, be it in an organization or in a country, is one of control. And so we've built these systems where control uses force on someone else. And that's how our society works. My boss has power over me. If I don't do what he says, he can fire me. Right?
Even then that dynamic even exists amongst family with children.
Of course.
Competing for parents' attention, for grandparents' attention, for who's the favorite. In the corporate world, in the business world, we've got acronyms. We've got a whole library of words, climbing the ladder, jockeying for position, CYA tactics. We've got a whole library of words to describe how to play this game.
Right. And it's a game.
And it's a game. And it's a competitive game. It's not a game of collaboration.
No.
It's a one person take all. They can only be one. It's the Outlander game. And we're all playing it. Without not realizing we're playing.
Right. And what the lenses do, what's the fiat lens does, it really sets up the rules of the game. It's about competition. It's about using force. It's about controlling others. It's about manipulating others. And it makes us believe that that's normal.
That's how the world goes around. You have to play the game.
You have to play the game.
You know what they say, don't hate the player, hate the game, right?
Well, this is the game that we've got. And so how we move away from that is by flipping the lens, first of all, recognizing that we have this fiat lens and flipping the lens. And people say, well, flipping the lens to what? If I flip the way I see the world, how can I see the world? When you're 2 years old and you say to mommy, can I help? And mommy's like, well, no, you can't. Get out of the thing. I've got to get this done. Mom's controlling you. But what was that 2-year-old wanting to do? Serve.
Yeah.
That 2-year-old wanted to engage, wanted to be, to see, do something meaningful. But they learned, mommy says no, go away. Daddy says go away. School says you can't do anything other than learn what I tell you to learn. Whatever is meaningful to you doesn't matter. And you lose connection with what is meaningful to you. So flipping the lens is an act of listening to yourself again. What is meaningful? What impact do you want to make? Because we're born with these desires. That's why these are human needs. The human need for meaning, for belonging, for impacting, for becoming. These needs are needs that are innate to us, but these lenses, because we don't see those things, these lenses ignore them. And like anything else, if you were to not use your left leg for 5-10 years, do you think that leg would work very well when you decided to use it?
I don't think you have to wait 5-10 years. Probably within 6 months,
you'd lose your leg, right? The muscles would atrophy, everything would fall apart. Well, unfortunately, we're not using those parts of us because we're so used to control.
I see it like this, because this is such a big idea and such a big concept, but it's also so simple. There's really two realities. On one hand, you've got the fiat reality that we've created, which is based on judgment and really hate. On the other side, you have this reality that's based on love, empathy, taking care of the needs of each other, which is not based on judgment. It's based on acceptance. So you can see which reality you're operating in based on, are you judging everything that's going on? Are you blaming everything that's going on? Or are you finding ways to see things through the lenses of love, which is actually not even a lens. It's actually a natural state.
Exactly.
We call it the lenses of love, but it's actually, that's a farce, right? Because the natural state is to see things through the eyes of love. The lenses is the fiat lenses that has taught us to, like even as a child, oh, I need to compete for attention. I need to jockey for attention. I need to, coerce to get attention. And so without realizing it, we just keep perpetuating this reality of judgment and blaming and playing this hateful game of competition versus one of love, acceptance, and empathy.
And both are our nature. So let me be clear here. In the research that we've seen in the neurosciences, it's not one or the other is who we are. We're capable of both.
Well, we have to be able to make judgment because that's what actually safeguards us, right?
Right. So,
but how do we use it is the question.
Exactly. And are we having to use it all the time rather than looking at things for what they are and looking at it from a compassionate perspective, right? When we look at each other from a compassionate view with love, as you say, that what we see is that you're no different than me. A few minutes before we started recording this, you said, I'm really tired today, right?
Yeah.
And my answer was, okay, we don't need to do this today, right?
But I was excited about this topic.
But you wanted to do it. You made yourself do it. And I appreciate that. But my point is that I tried not to go around going, well, too bad, so sad, Tulio. We scheduled it. Let's go do it, right?
Yeah.
And often when we give ourselves the permission, then we're like, I can do this.
So true.
Right?
So true.
You gave yourself the permission to do it and get up for it, and you're doing a great job. But it would have been different if the attitude from me and or Carlos had been, too
Come on,
bad.
let's pull it through. We're booked. Yeah, you just drag through it. That's kind of what happens.
Right.
That's another leading indicator that you're making decisions from the fiat lenses. If you're feeling like you're dragging through life, you're living through a lot of resentment. Unfortunately, that's what's going on. So another thing I wanted to bring up, I think is very appropriate, is this idea that we very easily blame everything around us. And there are some things where you do need to take responsibility for, and there's some things where you have to have discernment that someone might have wronged you, right? But the choice to continue to stay in that state of victim is a choice. And sometimes in the fiat lenses, you don't realize you have the choice to decide, I'm going to let that go and move on, right? Because you're taught to continue to fight to the death in that system.
Right.
So how can someone raise their awareness about realizing that they're operating in the fiat lenses? What are some other examples? We talked about a few of them, whether you're judgy or you're resentful, you're dragging yourself through things, you're feeling competitive all the time, you feel like you have to manipulate cohorts. Anything else that you want to share?
I think the biggest piece of it is we've gotten used to thinking about our feelings not as how am I in and out of balance with my environment, but as I'm feeling good or I'm feeling bad, I'm happy, I'm not happy, right? Like we built this competitive way of looking at our feelings. I'm happy, or you're sad, right? We're judging ourselves, right?
The feelings are based on some meter, some key performance indicator that we've built for ourselves.
When in reality, and we all want to be happy, so we strive for happiness, the feeling of happiness, and we strive to avoid feeling sad or low or angry or whatever the case may be. But it is the things around us, our environment, the work we do, the family we have, the friends we hang around with, that provide us with the means by which to be happy, right? A feeling is, if we, feeling happy is being in balance with our environment at that moment in time.
I mean, this brings me to the point. I actually wrote a blog about this. So many people chase happiness instead of chasing fulfillment. Happiness comes out of fulfillment, but you'll never feel fulfilled if you're just chasing happiness.
Right.
And it's the concept that if you're in balance, as you had mentioned, with yourself, with your surrounding, then you feel fulfilled, and that generates happiness.
Right.
But you could choose something that makes you happy in the moment, but the consequences of that might be dire, right? I can get high and that'll make me happy, but the consequences might not be very good.
Exactly.
So that's not really fulfilling.
That's avoiding seeking balance.
Right.
Right. Because seeking balance in that moment when you're down, right? You're depressed, you're down, you're lonely. The solution is that your environment is not providing you with what you need. Change your environment.
What are you really feeling? I'm feeling disconnected. Well, make the effort to get connected.
Exactly.
Not to the coping mechanisms that the fiat lens tells you to go cope with, but actually in a real way with people. And this brings me back to this idea of, like you said earlier, of nature, right? We do have some built-in discernment and judgment that even our body and our mind has built in. For example, I did a study, and if you walk towards a ledge, if you're walking about anywhere, it could be, maybe there's by a water, by an ocean, and you've got these drops, right? The closer you get to that ledge, you start to have this uncomfortable feeling. There's this discomfort that takes place, almost like your stomach starts churning, your head gets a little dizzy. It's a warning sign that you could be at risk of falling off the ledge and plummeting to your death. It's built in because we are rooted and grounded with nature. So we're actually communicating, and nature's communicating with us. Reality is constantly communicating with us. If you're tuned into it, you actually can hear what's going on. And it's a great protection because you're like, something's wrong. Oh, I see there's a ledge over there. If I keep walking, I'm going to die, right? So you move back. But we somehow with the lenses don't feel that around us. So we don't always get tuned into what's going on.
Right.
And it's a shame because it's like you're living life by not living it.
We've learned to focus on transactions,
Mm.
not focus on relationships. So, a transaction in the business world, right, is doing business. But doing business isn't the same as having a relationship with your customer. It's not the same as having a relationship with your coworker. It's not the same as having a relationship with the people that make your organization work. And when we are in relationship with nature, with the nature around us, that means that we feel what's going on. Instead of saying, I need to do this transaction, I need to go take this picture. Right?
Yeah, I agree 100%. We choose often the efficiency over relationships. For example, even when someone's looking to hire an employee, they'll send them a survey or make a video yourself or fill out this questionnaire. It's like before they even talk with them, they give them a whole list of things to do. It's like, why? That's choosing efficiency over relationship. You're making that person feel like they're just a cog, and it's become a natural thing. Well, we just need to go through and make sure we don't talk to the thousands of people that have applied, but that's not about them at all. So it's fascinating how much we've created in the spirit of efficiency or just getting through a transaction without considering the relationship aspects, the human to human relationship aspect, the feeling that comes out of having empathy and compassion and connection. Really, it's all about relationship. We're not getting better at relationships as a result of.
And we're becoming lonelier. In the United States, we are the loneliest country.
And AI is making it even worse because, again, it's increasing efficiency. It's got a good use for it, but if we're not careful, we're going down a path where the lenses are going to take us to a place that's very dark and very lonely, which is going to enhance mental illness to a whole time high, much higher than it already is now, to a place where you basically will feel like, what's the point?
And many people already feel that way.
It's very sad, and it's not their fault.
It's not
they
their
feel
fault.
That way.
Exactly. So what do we do about it? And I think that's the next episode, because the next episode is, let's talk about what the radical lens really are, and how people can recognize that they've got their fiat lenses on and start to view the world through the lens they were born with, not the lens that was forced upon them.
So come back for episode 5 and let's break free of this fiat madness together. Come check us out on episode 5 on The Radical World, the podcast.